Don't wallow in last year's mistakes. You ought to just dust yourself off and keep right on moving. There's no need to wallow in your mistakes. There's no need to wallow in your hurt and your guilt and your shame. There's no need as a church to say that this is too much for us to do in the middle of times like these. It doesn't matter what time we're living in. The God we serve is the same yesterday. Have I got a witness this morning? And he's the same today and forever. He's God and he changes not. And so since he is God, and since we are the people of God, then we ought to rise up and rebuild the community. We ought to rise up and restore the community. We ought to rise up and revitalize the community. Stop looking for the they who are never going to show up. If not now, when? If not here, where? If not us, who? We are the Ebenezer Baptist Church. We are children of the living God. Our ancestors had not nearly as much, and yet they built the sanctuary. They fed the hungry. They housed the homeless. They trusted in God. And so you ought to act like you're a child of God. You ought to act like somebody who's been saved by his grace and washed in his blood and bathed in his love and preserved by his mercy and sustained by his power and filled with his spirit. I'm no pitiful person. I'm a child of the living God. I'm not a cupbearer. Listen, I'm not a cupbearer to the king. I'm a child of the king, and my Father is rich in houses and in land. And so I believe I'll run on and see what the end is going to be. I believe I'll pray on, see what the end is going to be. I believe I'll fight on, see what the end is going to be. Somebody ought to rise up today. Somebody ought to say we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Somebody ought to say it's time to educate the children and protect the community and build the church and love the lonely and feed the hungry and house the homeless and heal the sick and evangelize the sinner and preach good news to the poor and proclaim release to the captives and open the eyes of the blind and set at liberty they who are captive. Somebody ought to preach the year of the Lord's Jubilee. Is there anybody here who knows that greater is the one who is within us than the one who is within the world? Anybody here know that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me? I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm sick and tired of talking about it and complaining about it and analyzing, theorizing. Meanwhile, the community is going to hell in a handbasket.